Today's episode's a bit of a belter. It's with the guys down at 5 Senses Coffee. And if you don't know who they are, they're a bit of a staple here in Melbourne and produce some of the best coffee in Melbourne, if not the world. I had the pleasure of sitting down with Gavan Hogan, who I'd met 6 months prior when I first came here, and he was so kind to give me a tour of the roastery then and now. Today's episode will be available on Spotify and Apple for the audio-only listeners, but there'll also be an extended version uploaded to YouTube. So if anyone wants to see some extra clips of what a coffee roastery looks like, head over to YouTube just now to see them. With this, I'm still learning with podcasting and sometimes things don't go to plan. So some of the lower frequencies of the audio were unfortunately clipped out just because the microphone was an inch too far away. But it still makes for a great episode, so I hope you really enjoy listening.
Well, welcome. It's a bit messy at the minute because we've been doing a few renovations and a bit of building.
So what's this part of the facility right here?
This is our green bean area where the green beans come in. It's also a bit of a storage place for this old roaster that we've just taken out. We're going to send this over to our Perth roastery shortly in the next little while. But we bring all our green beans in here. And we have beans from India. That was the coffee I was drinking this morning, the Viradican.
Really?
Yeah, it's a great story.
So how long can the green beans stay here for?
They could stay for a couple of years, but we generally use them within 3 months.
And is there a big focus on like sustainability and stuff for them?
Well, they are part of a national park or a national forest. It's a tiger reserve, so the tigers are protected there. They've got elephants and tigers and bison and sort of like crazy animals. That live there.
And this is within like the coffee plantation?
Yeah. And the roaster is in here. It's a Gießen. It's brand new.
Okay.
We're still installing it. We're still in the throes of getting it done. But the roasters are pretty happy with it because it's reduced their physical labour. So the beans head across here into a hopper up there.
Yep.
When the roasters are ready with the times and the temperatures and stuff, they'll drop it into this roaster. It's like a big oven.
Okay.
It's a drum. It's got blades inside it. It rotates. It's got a gas burner underneath. And the paddles mix the beans or agitate the beans. When they're at the right colour, they'll drop the beans into this cooling tray. We want to try and stop the roasting as soon as possible. So this is air cooled. And once the beans are cooled, we'll put it into this big de-stoner up here, and then we'll drop it down. You can see there's a tub of beans down there, ready to go to our mixing, blending area. So this is the Santos. This is the Brazilian coffee there. Got a nice aroma.
What do you tend to roast at? What kind of roast profile do you generally use?
Each bean has a different roast profile, and the roasters have got all the parameters that they need to put in. So the drop in temperature will be a particular level. The roast time will be a particular time. They'll keep an eye on it, and they'll smell it, and they'll look at the colour of the beans and that sort of stuff. All of those things come into play. And they've got 3 computer screens there measuring airflow, rotation, temperature, time, all of those parameters. So once we've got it roasted as a single, we'll then blend it. So we'll put it into our blender over here, which just mixes the beans together. We'll put, 30% Indian, 20% Brazil, what's that, 50% something else.
Okay.
It might be 3 or 4 beans, up to 5 beans might go into a blend. Depends what the customer wants, what our blends are.
And you said it's all roasted to order as well, right?
Yep.
And you do a mixture between direct to consumer online, but you also supply supermarkets now? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, we've started supplying a big supermarket chain. It's been good. It's been good. We'll see how that goes. It's still sort of like early days. We're still sort of
testing it out.
Yeah, testing it out, getting and building up a bit of a relationship with them and stuff. Yeah. But, well, from this facility, we dispatch to Tasmania, South Australia, New South Wales, Queensland. We have another roastery in WA, and they'll dispatch to WA, and they will also do all the internet orders, all the retail sales.
So purely within Australia, do you do any international? Do you do New Zealand or anything like that? Is there any plans for that in the future?
Not really. We do a little bit of international stuff, but not much.
Okay.
It's not our major focus. Our major focus is to be a great coffee roaster in Australia.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for coming on. It's a bit of an interesting way that we actually know each other. A bit of an interesting story. So just to give people context, listening before I came to Australia, I think I was in Bali at the point where I found you on LinkedIn and dropped you a little message about me coming to Melbourne and wanting to get involved in the coffee scene, and you were just kind enough to be like, come down, come for a look, come for a little tour of the roastery.
Pretty much, yeah.
That was on day 3, I think I was in Australia.
I think you'd found a second-hand bike.
Yeah, for $0.
Yeah, which is good. But at that time, Lem, I was pretty impressed with your planning and your idea of what you wanted to do. And we're always looking for great people who are interested in coffee and interested in working. And so I'm happy to chat to anyone that's interested.
Yeah, and that's a big part of your role, right? As like a HR manager, that you talk to people and you kind of figure out what works for them with 5 Senses in particular. Yep,
correct. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's a busy or a big part of my role. Other times it's just something that we're all settled and everyone's fine and it's all going along nicely. But other times it's busy.
Yeah, go through sprints and rolls.
For that part of my role, yeah.
I remember when I was down last time, you gave me a kilogram of beans. I think it was the Dark Horse blend.
Okay.
And that you gave me, and that kind of started me off. That lasted me about a good month. Made lots of cold brew, lots of different things.
Yeah.
So I want to relate that to just now. We both started off with the same coffee today, I think, unless you'd had a coffee prior. So what coffee did you start your day with today?
Today?
Yeah.
I brewed up an Indian coffee today, a Viradican coffee. So first, once I've done my walk and my little workout in the mornings to stretch and all that sort of stuff, I'll pop the pot on. I have an Italian Bialetti stovetop.
The mocha pot.
Yeah, the mocha pot, yeah. I've done all sorts. And at the moment, my coffee preparation at home is on the mocha pot. It was the Indian coffee this morning.
Okay, why did you choose that in particular?
I have a subscription with 5 Senses.
Okay.
And every 3 weeks they send me a couple of new coffees. Well, not new coffees, but different coffees. And at the moment, the 250-gram bag of Viradican is on the go. Viradican is an estate a coffee plantation we've been dealing with or buying coffee from for about 10 years. It's a great story. It's in southern India. It's around 1,500 meters above sea level.
Okay.
It's surrounded by a national park, and all these amazing animals live there. Like my favorite would be tigers.
This is part of the coffee plantation, right?
Well, I'm not sure. I've not been there. I was set to go when COVID hit, so I was pretty excited to head over there with our green bean buyer, with Matt. But COVID hit, all the travel got cancelled. It's either part of the coffee plantation or it's on the edge of the national park.
I was going to say it must be, because imagine trying to pick your coffee plantation for the day and you're having to watch out for tigers.
Well, Rich, or one of our green bean bars at one stage, Rich went over and he, a great photographer, and he got some photos of a tiger. So, they're there. And there's also elephants, bison, other animals that live in India. I'm not sure what they are, but it's cool. So that estate was built in or set up or started in 1888,
okay,
a long time ago. Yeah. And it's great coffee. and perfect for the mocha pot because it's pretty heavy coffee, good chocolatey flavors.
Is that what you kind of go for generally?
No, look, I taste all sorts of coffees. I love all sorts of different coffees. I love being surprised. The Ethiopian coffees that are very juicy and fruity and like fruit bombs in your mouth. That excites me too. I love that. I steer away from high acid coffees, although as time goes by, I'm getting better and better at that too.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy all the different coffees. I don't think there's one coffee that in our lineup that I don't like.
Awesome. I mean, that's a good place to come from, that you enjoy all of your own products. It must make working for the company more amazing, that you actually can take pride in everything, right?
Well, the next coffee that is in the lineup at home is one called Las Malo. It's a coffee from Papua New Guinea.
Okay.
Las Malo means last tree. And so this husband and wife team, wife and husband team, because the wife was the driver, set up a coffee factory near the last tree in the area. Like PNG, vegetation is quite diverse, and so you might only get one of that species of tree within 50 to 100 acres or something, hectares. And so this was the last tree of that species. They set up a coffee factory there, and it's a new relationship we're building with that group in Papua New Guinea, which I'm very excited about. And I'm very excited to taste the coffee because I know the area that it's from, and I'm interested to see how good it tastes.
What sort of coffee profile will you get out of that? Will it completely depend on how you roast it, or are you expecting a particular flavour profile from it?
Sure. So a couple of things. It is a washed coffee, so when they pick the cherries and they process it, they wash it, which should give it a cleaner flavour. But all the things like the soil, the temperature, the elevation, it grows between. It's a huge difference in elevation. I think it's around about 1,400 meters above sea level to like 2,500 meters above sea level. So it's all smallholder farms. So all local farmers grow the coffee and then bring it to the mill, which is sort of the main model in Papua New Guinea. There's not huge plantations like you've got in Brazil, for example. So they'll bring the local farmers from all around the area, from there's Alimbari area and Afani, not Afani, in the Eastern Highlands province, all the different areas around there, they'll bring their coffee down to the processing mill. So all of those things dictate or influence the final flavours of the coffee, very much like wine. If you grow the wine on the eastern side of the hill rather than the southern side of the hill, you'll get a different result. So yes, it does depend on how we roast it, and we're pretty particular about how we do that. But all of the factors that lead up to an excellent coffee are there's so many of them. Just depends on.
And it's not one more than the other; it's the combination of
and
those factors.
And then it gets to the barista.
Together. Yeah,
and the barista is really important too, and the water quality and the temperature of the machine and the pressure of the pump through an espresso machine. All of that's really important as well. So all of these fine little differences along the chain make for a great coffee or a disastrous coffee.
I think people don't realise how many tiny little steps it takes to get that flat white or that cappuccino or that long black in the morning. How many things have to go right to make that a reality, and how many things could go wrong.
Yep.
I'm curious, with all of this, you've obviously had so many years within the coffee industry, you've got a lot of experience. If you were to wake up tomorrow and have a perfect coffee-centric day, perfect day related around coffee, what kind of beverages would you have? What would you like to try? And money is no limit here, so you can run wild with your imagination.
Look, Liam, most of my days as far as coffee goes are pretty perfect. Because after I've done the mocha pot at home, which is like a very old-fashioned way of making coffee, but it's quick, clean, easy, and like we'll make 3 pots in the mornings because there's a few people that live in my house and or our house, and we all love that coffee. And I've convinced the other people that live with us, that the coffee we make at home is better than the coffee they're going to get down at the cafe. But they do like to support the local business, so they'll still go and buy the coffee from the local cafe, which is great. But once I get to work, then I'll have some filter coffees, and we've always got a variety of filter coffees on the bar, ready to taste, and we've got all the equipment that's pretty quick and easy to use. So the perfect day, every day is.
Is there
great
anything you would add? Anything at all?
Well, I could end off the day with an affogato, for example. That'd be quite nice.
There we are. Are you able to sleep after coffee late at night? Because a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, I don't tend to struggle, but I don't push it. Like after 2 p.m, I sort of probably don't drink much coffee. Yeah, I travelled with my wife in Italy a few years ago, and I discovered Cafe Corretto, which I thought was a pretty nice way of drinking coffee while you're travelling.
Cafe Corretto.
It's it's a shot of coffee and then a shot of some liqueur. So 10 o'clock in the morning, you'd wander down to the local cafe bar and talk to the barista. And
what kind of liqueur would they have with it?
They would offer any liqueur you liked. Often it's grappa in Italy, but my go-to while I was travelling was Sambuca. So they'd put a shot of coffee and then like a good shot of Sambuca at the top. So when you're on holidays, it's it just sets you up for the day.
I don't know if I'd choose Sambuca specifically myself, but I respect the choice.
You could have Frangelico, or you could have Cointreau, or you could have like grappa's pretty good too.
You've done quite a lot of travelling.
Done a bit. I don't know if it's a lot, but yeah, I've done a bit.
Out of the bit you've travelled, where have you seen that has the most kind of coffee-centric culture? Would it be Italy, or is it one of these producer countries?
Ooh.
Where did they place the largest importance on that as like a daily activity?
Say Melbourne.
It's actually a good shout. Would you be able to maybe go into like how big the coffee culture is in Melbourne and how that's maybe changed over the years as well?
Well, I was chatting to our sales manager yesterday, and he said that there's over 150 registered coffee roasters in Melbourne now. So when I started roasting back in 2000, I looked through the Yellow Pages, which is a telephone directory. It was before Google, before the internet. Well, not quite. But I counted up 50 registered coffee roasters then. And so the explosion of coffee roasters, around the world and especially in Melbourne has been astronomical. And it's good. It keeps pushing the quality of the coffee up across the board. But Melbourne's had a great history of coffee because the Italians came to Melbourne and brought espresso machines with them when they came back in the 1950s, I think, maybe 40s, when espresso machines started hitting Melbourne. And, we've had a great tradition of coffee since then. There's a cafe on just about every corner in Melbourne.
People don't go to Starbucks. One of the only places I've travelled to that I've noticed that people always buy independent, and Starbucks, they've shut down 4 or 5 shops within the past few years.
Do you think that's the same across Australia, or is it just Melbourne?
I mean, I've not been to anywhere else in Australia yet, but I've heard that Sydney, anyone from Melbourne, they talk about going to Sydney, they say the coffee's terrible.
Probably vice versa.
I don't know if that's just people from Melbourne don't like people from Sydney and vice versa. that rivalry going there.
There's always that rivalry going there, yeah. I've had some great coffee I've had some really good coffees in Sydney, that's for sure. Yeah. But in Melbourne, I think few things converged at the same time to really make the coffee or cafe culture explode in Melbourne. One of them was the drink driving rules. So, a little while ago, 20, 30 years ago or something, they introduced 0.05, so you couldn't drink and drive. So you couldn't go to the pub and get a skinful and then jump in your car and drive home. So I think the whole social culture of Melbourne and across Australia too was changed slightly just by that rule. So people will get together for a coffee rather than a beer. You'll meet your friends for a coffee, often in the mornings, mid-mornings. Whereas when I was growing up as a kid, it was you'd meet at the pub at 6 o'clock and you'd stay there till 10 o'clock and you'd roll home if you were lucky.
And so when did these laws come into place? When did you say?
Liam, I don't know exactly, but when I was 18 and licensed to drive, they were in then. So 0.05 was in then. But as the years have gone by, the culture has changed. And so now, if you're driving, you pretty much don't even drink any alcohol because there's, back in the day, it used to be, I can have 2 glasses of beer in the first, or 3 glasses of beer in the first hour and then 1 beer every hour after that. We don't even worry about that anymore. We just, if you're driving,
just don't drink.
Just don't drink.
Yeah.
There's lots of other alternatives now.
There must be a few other things that make that special. So you've got the introduction of Italian people in the 50s and 60s with the espresso machines. You've got the drink driving rules. There's many other places that have had those two influences and aren't as innovative as Melbourne, which blows my mind, because when I was travelling, people would tell me about Melbourne. This would be when I was in Thailand, when I was in Scotland, when I was in Spain. People always speak about Melbourne as this epicentre. And I'm just wondering what it is about the culture of Melbourne that kind of is so innovative with coffee.
We're a friendly lot down here.
You are. I'd admit you are a friendly lot.
We really love going out and being with friends. We love eating nice food in nice surroundings, and getting out and mixing with people has been big. Like the Italians have built a lot of the culture in Melbourne too, and like the immigrant, the Greeks and the Vietnamese and all the people that have come to Melbourne or to Australia, but Melbourne specifically for the moment, we have a great culture down here, and coffee and eating and celebrating together or just being together, I think, has helped. Also, you had companies like Five Senses that started in 2000, like 23 years ago. It was the specialty coffee was starting to appear around the world, and we were on the ground floor of that. Other companies that helped to develop that in Melbourne would be Seven Seeds. That's another great coffee company. Small Batch, that's another one. And these beautiful companies have just developed and grown over the years. We made a decision when we started that we would be open and transparent, and we wouldn't be secretive about what we had and what was in our blend. And we would tell people, we've bought this coffee from this farm in this country from these people, and we're blending it with this coffee from this farm in this country, which was new. That was just unheard of. Like, I can remember when I started, I would talk to other roasters and I'd say, how big's your roaster? And they'd look at me as if to say, what do you want to know that for? And I'm thinking, okay, you can't ask that of the existing roasters. It was important to be secretive, and keep your IP close. And we chose back in the day that we were not going to do that. We were going to try and lift the standard of coffee, and we were going to tell people where we got it from, because we're really proud of where we get it from, and we do have long-term relationships with coffee producers.
Can you take me back to that time 23 years ago when Five Senses is being founded?
Yep.
And kind of paint me a picture of what those initial conversations looked like. and what the what the vision and the goal for 5 Senses originally was.
Right. Okay. So it started a few years before that. The owner of 5 Senses, a guy called Dean Gallagher, he was living in the highlands of Papua New Guinea, working for the same company that I was working for. So he was a school teacher in the highlands in Kundiawa, and I was a school teacher in the next major town in Goroka. And because we were working in the same organisation, we met and became great friends. Our lives had led very similar paths up until then. We were both married. We both had 3 daughters. We were both living in Papua New Guinea. We were both school teachers. We were both principals of international schools up there. So, you know, we were sort of doing things in tandem. I was a bit lucky because I lived in Goroka, which had a doctor and a supermarket, a couple of supermarkets, and it had water and telephones and services, whereas Kundiawa was a more remote, smaller town, and Dean and his wife and their children would come to Goroka and they'd stay with us because they needed to visit the doctor, do the shopping, get the lawnmower repaired, make some telephone calls, use the internet, and all those sorts of things. So our relationship with Dean's family grew and developed, and we had a lot of things in common. And Dean and I would sit on the veranda at night time looking at the sunset in the beautiful highlands of Papua New Guinea, and talk about what the future looked like. And Dean would say, I want to take this coffee. So the whole highlands was based, the commercial basis was coffee. All of the parents that sent their children to our school would be in the coffee industry. So they were either growers, buyers, coffee scientists, exporters.
So you're surrounded.
Everybody was into the coffee. It was into coffee. It was just huge. In fact, one of the guys that had children at the school he was a fairly important man out in one of the villages. Okapa, I think, I'm trying to remember, it was a long time ago, but I think he lived out in Okapa. I would see him from my office drive his ute full of coffee cherries past the office, along past the airstrip to the coffee bars on the other side of the airstrip. And I'd know that within a couple of hours he'd be back paying school fees because he'd sell his coffee, he'd go and buy his supplies, his all the bits and pieces he needed for home, then he'd drop in and he'd, do the next instalment of his school fees for his kids. And that was a regular occurrence. And if it was a good harvest, you knew that it was going to be pretty easy for the farmers to pay for their school fees. So that was, and Dean was really interested in the coffee. So he started buying coffee from the locals and roasting it in his oven at home and brewing it up. At that stage, Judy and I were drinking Nescafe with milk and 2 sugars.
Oh, terrible. Sacrilege.
And Dean would say, Gav, you've got to drink this. Try this. And I'd drink it and go, no, I don't like it much, dude. And he said, no, it's good. This is really good. And so I did. I kept drinking it and he'd keep bringing me coffees. And eventually he said, I want to take this down to Australia. I want to take this back to Australia. I want to buy this coffee and send, roast it in Australia. And he would paint a picture of what the future would look like. And I was pretty excited by the picture that he was painting. It really appealed to some deep sense of myself and my gratitude for the time that I spent in Papua New Guinea. So the fact that we were able to buy coffee from farmers in PNG, bring it to Australia and send money back to Papua New Guinea was something really special to me. So I'd spent 10 years in Papua New Guinea. For me, it was a great place. I met my wife in Papua New Guinea. She was a volunteer, an Australian volunteer abroad. She went up to Papua New Guinea as a school teacher to work as a volunteer volunteer up there for a couple of years. I was a tourist when I first went there. I just wanted to wander around, a bit like you, Liam, wandering around the world, footloose and fancy-free in your 20s, and I was wandering around Papua New Guinea. I was on my way to Africa, but on my way to Kenya. But I thought I'll just drop into PNG on the way because it's so close to Australia. And I spent a few months there, and I met this lovely volunteer, and I thought, oh, she's really special. I ended up leaving PNG. I went across to the Solomons, renewed my visa, came back in, got offered a job, got a working permit, stayed there for 2 years, eventually married this girl.
How did that change your plans for the future?
Oh, like that was not on my agenda at all, ever. That was like I was a single bloke. I had not thought about settling down. I was off for adventure. I'd worked as a teacher in Victoria for a couple of years and I'd saved up money, and I was off. I was heading off, but working and living and spending time in PNG just it appealed to all of my adventureness, my sense of adventure. It's an incredibly adventurous country. I used to wake up in the mornings and think, what adventure am I going to get into today? Because nothing was ever the same. There was always something that you had to deal with. It was never the same. And so, I met Jude in PNG. I met Dean in PNG. I spent 10 years working up there as a school teacher.
It's a long time to spend in one country that's not your home.
Yeah. Like, I didn't expect to do that. I didn't think I'd do that, but that's what happened. And then the fact that I was able to come... So my children, my 3 daughters, were heading towards teenage years. They needed to either go to boarding school or we would come back to Australia as a family and put them into day school. So that's what we chose to do. We chose to come back to Australia, back to Victoria. Jude's from New South, so she came down here, put the girls into day school because we thought we just don't want to send them to boarding school. We don't want to be separated from them. So we ended up coming back here. But the connection with PNG has survived. We set it up so that we buy the PNG coffee. And when we first started roasting lamb, we had only PNG coffee. We had a light roast, a medium roast, and a dark roast of PNG coffee. We bought it from a guy called Jerry Kapka, and for about 12 years we had a very strong relationship with him and his coffee facility. And he was like the last Marlow coffee that I spoke about before. The local farmers, mainly his relatives, his extended family, grew the coffee, would bring it to him, he'd process it and sell it to us. He also sold it to companies in Japan, he also sold it to Europe. I think he sold it to America as well. So after 12 years with Jerry, we stopped buying that coffee because we just couldn't get the quality that we needed. As the market in Melbourne improved and increased, you needed to get better and better quality coffee. And we would work with them. For example, when we started buying coffee, they would put blue tarps on the ground and put the cherries on the tarps to dry them in the sun. If the rain was coming, they'd roll the tarps up and then unroll them. So, simple things like we suggested to them, why don't you build tables so that you can have the beans up here? It stopped the pigs walking across the cherries. It stopped the dogs walking across the cherries. It also allowed these people to take the stones out and the twigs out. And
so drying beds, right?
Drying beds, yeah. And so we worked with them for quite a few years. They're smart people, really entrepreneurs. Jerry was a great entrepreneur. He is a great entrepreneur. Yeah. I remember he came down here to visit a couple of times, and he stayed with us. We were so happy to have him. He's a short, stocky Highlander. They're all short, strong, stocky people. And he was just amazed at the road system that we had. And he they grow coffee. And it's like, I have been asked in the past, what do you do with this stuff? And I go, well, we drink it. And, you know, for them, they just grow this bean or this cherry and they sell it and get money. And so they didn't know a lot about it. But Jerry,
So they weren't actually drinking the coffee that they produced.
No.
Their entire ecosystem economy relied on that, but they never got to see that final product.
Not back, 25 years ago.
No.
Some did, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, some did, but not a lot of the village people actually had they were interested in drinking tea, not so much coffee. It's changed now. But Jerry, I introduced Jerry to all the cafes that we were supplying, and he was so happy to see the work that he and his family were doing to produce this coffee was ending up in these great cafes with these very happy people. They were so happy to meet him as well. Jerry also went to our roastery in WA. He brought his sons down a couple of times, or once, to sort of train them up as roasters. They bought a roaster. They started roasting. So the relationship with Jerry was really good. Yeah, really good. And I'm so excited that we're back again buying PNG coffee. There was a little hiatus there for a couple of years, but we're back again.
With all that you've just said there, you've obviously, there's a lot of longevity behind 5 Cents. You've been around for 23 years. Well, I'm assuming many roasteries and companies have came and gone in that time.
Most are still here, I think.
Do you reckon? Out of the last 23 years, how many coffee roasteries do you reckon have started up shop and then ultimately failed?
Oh, not many.
Not many?
It's like I suppose I don't know about the ones that have failed. I know about the ones that have succeeded and are still going.
Well, if we're to relate it to you, why do you think 5 Senses has stood the test of time? Why do you think you're known as a staple of Melbourne? Because you're one of the first companies I heard about. Any blogs online, 5 Senses are always there.
Thanks, marketing department. Well, we've always been on about quality. We've always been on about transparency. We've always been our mission. The driving force behind 5 Senses has always been, and we didn't know how to articulate it in the first few years, but we just started, let's go. And our mission was, we were able to sort of nut it out and sort of articulate it a few years down the track, is to have a positive impact on people. That's always been our mission. We didn't know that was the exact words, but since about 2004 or 5, that came quite strongly. So to impact people positively through coffee is what we've always been on about. And that's been our driving force. And our 4 core values that we've had all the way through. Again, we didn't quite know how to articulate them until a bit later on down the track when we learned about strategy and business plans and those sorts of things. Our 4 core values are: we always want to be ethical, so we do the right thing. We always want to be excellent, so we do the best that we can, whether we're packing coffee or delivering coffee or answering the phone or visiting customers or fixing a grinder. We want to be excellent at that, and so we spend a lot of time developing our staff and developing ourselves to be excellent at what we do. We want to be positive, so we are always thinking above the line. We want our workplace to be a fun place to be. In fact, Dean said one year, fun is compulsory at 5 Senses. I think he said fun is almost compulsory at 5 Senses. But and the last one is caring. We care. We care about the people that we buy coffee from. We care about the people we work with. We care about the coffee we produce. We care about the environment that the coffee's grown in. We care about our customers. We care about their customers. We want to make sure that they have a great coffee experience every time they go to a cafe that supplies 5 Senses coffee. So those 4 core values, caring, ethical, excellent, and positive, are the basis of what we do. And that purpose of impacting people positively must, or has, over the years, stood us in good stead and allowed us to be successful. because we've stuck really strongly to those
Use them as your guiding principles, right?
I say to people, if you're a bit unsure about what to do, think about those 4 core values or those 4 words, and the solution will just come up. It's easy.
Standards to live by.
Yeah.
How do you think your role has contributed to that? Could you tell me a bit more about what you do within Five Senses?
Sure.
And how you've managed to translate those values into people or into what it is you do?
Okay, sure. So when we started, Dean set up the roastery in Perth. I set up a roastery in Victoria. We used to Skype every day. Basically, it was, hey, we got these beans. Do you know how to roast? You know, what are you roasting? What temperature you're dropping the beans in? How long are you roasting for? What color are you getting? What's it tasting like? And we Skyped every day for maybe a year, 2 years maybe, to try and work out how to do this stuff, because we were both school teachers. We could read and we could research and we could do all that stuff. We developed our strategies and stuff. So I've roasted, I've packed, I've invoiced, I've collected the money, I've done the banking, I've done the BAS, I've done all that stuff. And as the company grew, in about 2010, we started to formalize a lot of the things. So 10 years after we started to formalize a lot of the things where we set specific roles for people. We were a rapidly growing company, and so people could basically put their hand up and say, I'd really like to do marketing, or I'd really like to do roasting, or I'd like to buy the green beans. And at that stage, we were able to allocate those roles to people, and I put my hand up and said, I want to look after the HR.
Why?
And everyone went, you're what? you want to what? I went, honestly, there's so many experts out there. Like, we've got such a great bunch of people that are great at coffee, much better at coffee than I have ever been or will ever be. They've got a better palate. They've got better sensory knowledge than me, whereas I'm good with people. I wanted to set the company. We did an evaluation of the company. What are we good at? What are we not so good at? What are we really poor at? So it was a tick, a line, and a cross, and all the HR stuffs, like all the HR things like policies, OH&S, procedures, role descriptions, interviewing, recruitment, onboarding. We were bad at that. We weren't good at that. There was a cross on nearly every one of those things, and I went, I can fix those crosses. I can fix that. I can get all that stuff up and running. So for the last 13 years, I've been writing and maintaining policies. I've been writing role descriptions. I've been interviewing people. I've been bringing people into the company that are just top quality. I've been developing the OH&S part of the business as well, with a great team of great humans, good humans. And people hang around at Five Senses for a long time, which is good and bad, because as we bring in great new humans, a lot of the roles are already filled, and so there's when the business is growing rapidly, people will naturally gravitate to a particular role. So a lot of people started in WA. A lot of people started as our driver. So we'd employ people to drive the van and deliver the coffee, and then we discover that they had a marketing degree. Do you want to do marketing? Yeah, I'll do marketing. So the driver became the marketing guy. Here's a good story. We recently appointed a chief information officer. So he's in charge of all the technology in business. He started in our packing room, packing coffee. He's now one of the senior execs of the company. Packing coffee to become the guy in charge of all the technology in the company. It's a great story for him. Other examples of staff, we recently had a guy who left business after 12 years. He came, he was, he came as a young teenager who was shy, could hardly look at you in the mornings. He was incredibly shy. He left recently and is applied for other jobs, or has applied for another job. He's confident. He's smart. He's articulate. He's strong and capable. And that journey for him, I just love those. I love those journeys where they come in, they spend some time with us, they grow, develop. They do life with us for a while, and then they go on to do other things.
Why do you care so much about your job?
Because I can be one of the little pegs in the journey of supporting these people in developing countries that have so little. Like they're not collecting money to buy fancy cars or big houses. They're collecting money to pay for some medical supplies, to pay for some basic food, to pay for some basic education, and they deserve that support from us in these, affluent countries. That's why I care. I care because we can send money back to the grassroots people, and we can have fun doing it. Like everyone loves to have a coffee. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people love to have a coffee, and it brings joy. So I don't know. That's just how it is for me, and for most people at Five Senses. I would say, most people love what they do most of the time.
What do you think the most rewarding part is? Is it seeing people change over time? Is it seeing the grassroots impact? What kind of speaks to you on like a deeply human level?
Well, yeah, all of those things. One of our roasters in Perth used the phrase once, but I thought it was really, really, a good phrase, and it's stuck with me for years now. One of his guys had worked with him for a few years and had resigned, was moving on to another company, another job, and he said, we did life together for about 6 years. It was great, and I'm thinking that's what you do. You're on a journey, and for a period of time you're together with somebody, and you do life together. You work it out together. You make mistakes, you help each other, you look out for each other, you get better, you become excellent at what you're doing.
One of the values.
Absolutely. Like they're pretty basic, like they're pretty simple values, but they're so powerful and so good. And what's happened is that, and I was talking to one of another staff member last week, and she said to me, those values are part of my personal life now. Like in my life, I want to be excellent, positive, ethical and caring. And I am. And it just suits me. And I like to have a positive impact on people. And being able to articulate those things so quickly and easily and front of mind makes it easy and enjoyable. And you know what you're doing,
Yeah, it's awesome to have those guiding you.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the relation to a personal level for people as well. How you're describing the company becomes part of that person, they end up adopting those values. It's a big thing for me as well. I remember reading a long time ago a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yes, yep.
And it's one of those, it's a better book than what it sounds like. It sounds as if it's going to be very gimmicky and so on, but within that they talk about a mission statement. And the mission statement is these guiding principles that you live your life by, and all your actions are dictated from that. And that's something that I've taken in life and let guide me. And it's funny to see that formulate in different ways, and it's exactly as you describe as well here. I'm wondering, with your role within Five Senses, what's something you wish you've seen more of in terms of potential candidates, and what's something you wish you've seen more of within the coffee industry in general?
Well, I would love to see more diversity in the applications. When we advertise for roles, I'm really careful about the language I use in the ads. I want to be inclusive. I want to put it out there that, you know, we want people from a diverse background, even like gender. Like if we advertise any role in the coffee world, I get 80% applications from males and 20% from females. And I know from having done business for 23 years, having a diverse workplace is so good. It makes a huge difference. And so I'd like more people from more diverse backgrounds to apply for jobs at 5 Senses. In the coffee world, I would like us to be able to pay farmers more.
Okay.
Like, honestly, the amount of labour that goes into growing good quality specialty coffee, and the care that you've got to take to get that quality really needs to be high. You know, we need to pay more for it. If you look at some of those wonderful sommeliers in restaurants, you know, and you get a glass of wine, the sommelier helps you choose a lovely wine, pours it for you, and that's, you know, $14, $15. When you relate that to how much work and how many hands a little coffee cherry goes through before it's actually in your cup, and how many things can go wrong, which we touched on before, we should be paying $15 a cup for a cup of coffee. It's just that we pay 4 or 5 now.
Is 15 ever sustainable? Will the coffee market survive with that?
Yeah. It's it probably not, but the value or the amount of work that goes into the coffee, you know, warrants that sort of amount.
How does 5 Senses B Corp status play into this entire thing?
Oh, great. Thanks for asking about B Corp. We are what's known as an aspiring B Corp company. Okay. So we are currently being, our submission to become a B Corp certified company is being assessed at the moment. So our mission is to impact people positively. And we, you know, the CEO, Jason is the CEO a few years ago, said, I want us to be assessed. Are we actually achieving our mission? Is what we say we are doing, do we actually do it? Where's the proof that we do this? And one way of being assessed on that from an external body is to submit yourself to the B Corp assessment. B Corp is a movement, a business movement around the world that is not all and only about making profits. So by law in America, if you run a public company, the decisions you make must have a positive impact on the shareholders. So any decisions you make about the company and the direction of the company must benefit the shareholders. That's your modus operandi. But with a B Corp, the decisions you make must impact you must consider the environment, the workers, the product, the way the company's run. Did I get all of them? Governance, workers, community, environment, and product. Yeah. So, and you need to change your constitution and the laws about how your companies run. If you're a B Corp company, allows you to make decisions that are like good for the environment or good for the workers, good for the community. And so we're holding our company up to that microscope. And we started that journey in, I don't know exactly, it was around about 2017.
Okay, so a while now.
5 years.
Yeah.
We've been doing this. We've been learning about what B Corp is. We've been changing our practices. We've been writing policies. We've been changing how we do things so that we can become a certified B Corp company. Fortunately, a lot of what we were already doing just needed to be measured and recorded. So, for example, we needed to get a lot more measurements around our supplier chain and who our suppliers were, how long we'd been dealing with them, how much money we'd paid to them for the products we'd had, what we were buying from them. So we were doing that. We just had to write it down. So we are doing a lot more measurement about our company now to be able to say yep or no, but hopefully yes, we are impacting people positively.
So B Corp for you, is it about holding yourself to that standard and having a measurable impact? And what are the benefits of having a B Corp status? Because it puts you in a group of other companies that within that is all about being able to signal to the customer that you do care and you've went under that scrutiny to keep yourself to those standards. How does that translate for the customer?
Sure. Like I recently wanted to apply for a loan. Boost up my mortgage again. And I found a bank that's a B Corp company, a B Corp bank. And I went, oh, well, I know that if I'm going to deal with them, that they look after their workers, look after the environment, have a good product, they're going to be ethical, and so they're not going to invest in things that I don't want invested in. So I'll go with them. So it is definitely a commercial bonus to be a B Corp company for the people in the world that are conscious of those things. Like, is this packaging compostable or is it recyclable? Which I suppose is a bit contentious at the moment with the Red Cycle recycling program going out the window.
Yeah, I heard about that recently.
That's a real shame. But fortunately, they're picking that up and they're re-looking at how that can happen again. So it's for people that know about it and people that are aware of it, yes, becoming a B Corp company is certainly a commercial advantage for us. That's not why we did it. It's just an added benefit for the work that we're doing in that. So we submitted our application in July last year, and because it's sort of a growing movement now, there's a whole stack of companies in Australia that are being assessed at the moment, and we are 1/3 through the assessment. I got some stats yesterday from our COO, sent across a little message saying this is how we're going with our assessment so far. So we've submitted the application, we've submitted the program, 1/3 of our assessments taken place already, and we've ticked all those boxes so far.
It sounds as if there's an intense amount of scrutiny with it.
Huge. Like unbelievable.
And I suppose that's a good thing because it means you constantly have to iterate and improve and be more transparent, which is, again, part of your goals in the first place, right? When you first formed this.
Yeah.
With all these constant iterations and improvements, where do you see 5 Senses in 5, 10, 20 years' time?
Yeah, sure. So every 3 years, the rules around all the expectations of B Corp change, improve, get better. The bar is raised a little bit every couple of years. So that will be one driving factor. But in addition to that, in 5 years and 10 years' time, I just hope that we can continue the mission that we've got and impact more people. So a few years ago, we went into a partnership in Indonesia. We bought a share, 1/3 share of a coffee mill in Sumatra. And I remember Dean getting very excited. He's saying, this is going to impact 800 families. So what we're doing here is that influence is going to spread out even further and it's going to impact 800 families. When Dean and I were first talking, we're both on very similar, like we want to make a difference, and that's probably why we're in PNG in the first place, trying to share some skills and knowledge and stuff. And I was very much, I'll just go and do it. I'll go and work with that person, and I'll help them do that. And Dean's going, yeah, but what if you trained 15 people to go out and help those people to do that? And I went, oh yeah, I suppose that would make a big difference. And like Dean has always been a big picture sort of person, and the bigger the impact, the more generous he can be, the better for him too. An incredibly generous person who always sees the best of any situation. I really loved working with Dean for 23 years. We're still great friends, and we still talk. We don't Skype every day. We don't even Skype anymore. We've got our own internal technology now.
Where is he just now?
He's based in Perth.
He's based in Perth. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So in 5 or 10 years, Liam, I don't know, impacting more people, buying better coffee, having a higher quality of service, having better machines. We love working with our suppliers. For example, that roaster you saw this morning, our technical services manager works with that company and says, we've installed this roaster, but, some of the software here could be better. How about you try this? And so I think he spoke to me a little while ago and said, I've sent 15 recommendations to the roasting company, and they had a meeting with all the bigwigs, and they are going to implement every one of them.
Really just based off his asks and recommendations and questions.
Yeah. So that's the roasting side of it. We've always worked with the Synesso coffee machines out of America.
Just them.
We've constantly fed back to them improvements and ways that the machine could be better, what our customers need the machine to do. We have, and that's just been how we are. That's part of our DNA, just to work with people. We are huge collaborators with people. There was a water project in, I'm going to say Tanzania. I think it was Tanzania. Where we partnered with them to build these water stations so that people didn't have to carry water for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. We love to collaborate with people. We met some people from some of these countries go out of my mind. But we set up, it's an African country, we set up a communal shamba. There was a doctor and her husband studying in Melbourne, and they came across, they started tasting Five Senses coffee, and they started talking to us about what they were doing, and they headed back, I think, again, it's Tanzania. They headed back to Tanzania and set up community health centres, and in order to fund that, they started, started growing coffee. And so we said, well, we'll buy your first crop. Sight unseen, don't know what it tastes like, but we'll buy that. And so we've been buying their coffee now for the last several years. Great story where the profits from the coffee that they grow and they buy from neighbouring farms and things goes back into the health centres in that area. Another funny one, which was really good, was Dean was travelling in Africa, and the women sort out the coffee, the green beans, and they pick out all the impurities. So they pick out the broken beans, the black beans, the twigs, the rocks, the stones. And he noticed that their eyesight wasn't that good, or they were getting older and their eyesight was failing. So he organised a shipment of glasses to them. Awesome. The red frames were 5+ magnifiers. The green frames were 4+. The yellow frames were 2+. The blue frames were 1+. And he said, try these on. Whichever ones fit, there you go. Really practical stuff. Another one out of he bought gumboots for all the coffee scouts. There was a program set up by Ben. Again, the names have gone from my head. But the coffee scouts were going through mud. They needed gumboots. So we organised a bunch of gumboots to go in. Just practical stuff. That coffee I was talking about earlier, the one I had this morning, the V-Radican, there was a girls' orphanage that was close to that state that Jen Murray, our green bean bar at the time, came across. And so for years and years, we contributed to that orphanage, and they paid for education for young girls in India to go to school, pay for their uniforms and their food for 12 months or so. So we ran programs over here and used to send money back to them on a regular basis. And we have all these little projects going on all over the place, and I love the collaboration of stuff. We love to collaborate with people and improve life for people.
It's amazing that your values and what you do translates so tangibly with all these stories, is that you can grasp it, you can feel it because it's there, because there's anecdotal examples of that actually happening. I'm wondering, I want to bring it back to you personally.
Okay.
Which is always the hardest part, because it's hardest to talk about yourself, I find, at least. And I want to relate both Five Senses and your personality together. So I'm wondering, what about your work professionally has changed your character personally?
It's a lot easier doing this job than it ever was being a school teacher.
Really?
School teaching's hard. It's hard. And it's demanding, and you've got, well, when I was teaching, I think I had, at one stage, I had 43 grade 1 students in my class. That was hard, but joyful, full of fun. So working at Five Senses, and me personally, well, Five Senses has sent me to be educated, so I've done Certificate 4 in HR, then I did a diploma in HR through Swinburne University, so that even though I had a sense of what HR meant, I wanted to be excellent. So I said, I need to do these courses. Yep, I can go and do the courses, become excellent.
I've seen that on your LinkedIn, actually. Would you see...
That was fun. That was really good.
Has your personality changed at all because of this role? Do you act any differently in person? Do you ever catch yourself in HR mode in a conversation?
Oh, yes. Often. Yeah. And I'm constantly curious about people and how they are and what makes them tick. And so this conversation is normally the other way around. Normally I'm asking those questions of other people. But has it changed my personality? It's brought me a lot of joy. And because I am in the HR world, I have studied like personality types, and I've done lots of courses around strengths and those sorts of things. And so I do catch myself saying, gratitude, that's one of your strengths, and that's a good strength to have.
So you're more hyper aware of those little things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those strengths, I've sort of studied them. I've studied emotional intelligence. And so, yes, Liam, it has changed me because I'm much more aware, and personally, I'm more conscious of how I appear in the world. And that's good. That's a good thing. I was a little bit random and all over the place and a bit flaky. Well, not flaky, but just jumping from here to there on all sorts of things. Now I'm much more focused and directional and with a purpose, So that's changed.
What do people know you for, both professionally and personally? They hear Gavan Hogan, what do you think?
So one of the things I love, I ask for feedback all the time. Most emails end up with, if we can do this better, let me know, or if there's any questions, let me know. So just through asking people, people will, and people tell me that they admire the fact that I am generous and kind. And I think being kind is a good thing to do. And you need to be courageous sometimes to be kind. But
what do you mean by that?
sometimes you've got to make hard decisions. And it's one of those qualities that I aspire to. I love the fact that there are times where I am courageous. I'm not always courageous, but I think that's a quality that is worthwhile pursuing. And you've got to take risks and give the other person the benefit of the doubt and say, I think that, we could do that. So not only do I like being kind to other people, but I also like being kind to myself. So I set my life up so that I'm kind to my future self. So, I'll set up my gym gear in the morning, and so when I get up in the morning, I don't have to think about it. I just put my runners on, my shorts on, and off I go. I'm walking. I'm still asleep, but I've got the dog, and off I go. I've got the podcast in my ears, and off we go. So I like being kind to my future self. If I get something out of the cupboard, I'll put it back there so that next time I don't have to think about it. I know it's just there, and off we go. And if I'm kind to myself, I can be kind to other people. My dad was a very kind man. He, as he got older, he was kinder and kinder.
Is that something you've noticed with yourself?
Yep.
Why do you reckon it is?
Because when you're young, Liam, when you're 23, going on 24, you have a very, it's tough.
Self-centered.
You've got to make your way in the world,
Yeah.
By the time you get to the end of your career, 62 now, you've done lots of things. You've made a difference, and you can rest on your laurels a bit, I suppose. Yeah, and it's easier to be kind.
You talk about being kind to your future self.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if
I got that out of a book, by the way. Not my words.
I appreciate the honesty. If you were to give advice to 23-year-old yourself, what would you say? 23-year-old self is sitting here, young Gavan Hogan is sitting here. Yeah. What would you say to him?
Just back yourself. Back yourself all the way. Do it. Be kind. Be kind to yourself and kind to others as well. And we tend to, as young people, even, everybody, we tend to, berate ourselves a bit. And, we're not good enough. We've got to try harder. We've got to work better. And that's all true. That's all the motivation that gets you out of bed and gets you going and gets you through those hard days. But, in the end, life's just live life and do the best you can.
Awesome. I think in terms of this entire conversation, it's came really full circle.
Yes.
With everything we've said. So what I want to do is finish off on a few quick fire questions.
Okay.
And I'm looking for 30 seconds to 45-second answers. Although you could probably they're questions that you could have a 5-minute answer to.
Okay.
But we're going to try to constrict it to 30 or 45 seconds.
Okay, far away.
What's something unexpected that's gave you pleasure as you age?
My grandchildren, definitely. Very unexpected how much they bring joy to my life.
Okay. What is a coffee order that makes you second guess someone's sanity?
Ooh. What about a cafe corretto?
A cafe corretto is a very good question. Yeah. Sambuca especially. I think that makes me second guess your sanity.
Yeah.
What is the best meal you've ever had?
Oh, it was my daughter's 25th birthday at a restaurant down on the Mornington Peninsula. It was at a winery, and we were looking out across a valley towards Western Port Bay. The fog was in the valley. It was great service, great food. Do you know what, Liam? I can't remember what we ate, but the meal was so wonderful. All my children were there. My wife was there. We were in this fancy restaurant. The service was great. We were celebrating a quarter of a century of Alana's life, and very memorable time. We all remember that meal because it was good vibes that day.
What do you think your last thought on Earth will be?
Oh, I'm going to miss my wife.
Awesome. Yeah. I think that's us.
Great. Thanks,
beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. It's been really nice to bring this so full circle. Like having this first conversation 3 days into Australia, into Melbourne, to coming to now.
Well,
6 months down the line.
Time, haven't you?
Try to. So that's been really full circle, and I just want to thank you for taking the time, being honest and open, just being available to do this as well, and being so kind with your kind of generous with your time. So